Hey everyone, welcome to the Uncanny J-Men. I'm Josh,
And I'm Jade.
and today we're going to be talking about episode 5 of Moon Knight. Be warned, there will be spoilers.
A lot. A lot of spoilers.
Oh yeah.
Don't we have five that?
So let's jump right in. My first talking point happens right at the very beginning, and it took me a couple watches to do this, but it's to notice this thing that I'm thinking happened. I think we saw Jake Lockley.
Yeah?
Yeah. So the very first scene, yeah, I know, I'm jumping right in the deep end here. The very first scene where Marc is talking with Dr. Harrow. Marc is very reserved. He's talking very quietly. He's hesitant. He doesn't trust Harrow. He's not sure what to think. Then Harrow says, "You were just about to tell me about a boy. Would you like to tell me about the boy?" Now, Marc completely changes at this point, but the first time I saw it, I thought that he was just like, okay, I got to get out of here. Let me act differently and try and get out of here. When I watched it the second time and the third time, I realized when he's asked this question, he kind of leans forward and just his face just slackens for a moment. And then he just starts talking again much louder than he was before, more animated. He grabs the sharp object and seems to be holding it like it's a support blanket. He's just holding onto this thing like it's an instinct, which we don't see Marc reacting instinctively like that. And his grammar decreases. He says something about, "You're making me feel real good now, Doc." Like something like weird. Actually, that's, I have the exact words, but I got to find it. But anyway, but his grammar decreases and suddenly he's just talking very differently and acting differently. I think that was Jake. My thought process here is that Jake has formed because of the pressure of Moon Knight. This is just my theory, but the pressure of Moon Knight and Marc always wishing that he would lose the fight, Jake steps in to protect Marc to keep Marc from losing the fight. So when Marc finds himself in a situation that he's nervous about, that he doesn't know how to respond to, Jake could be stepping in there.
Interesting.
What do you think?
I was going to say the first thing I wanted to talk about was before the episode started.
Wow. All right.
And it has to do with this. It has to do with this. So basically, what I noticed was the previously on Moon Knight had no reference, no images, no anything about, oh, that sarcophagus we saw, or you don't remember this, or like the fish, like all the things that we've always had in the previously on Moon Knight, where it's hints towards Jake. They didn't include that this time in the previously. So I was like, interesting. They're not even alluding to Jake at all. And then the entire episode goes through and I'm like, they didn't add anything else. There was the one thing I thought was going to be it when they were going through memories and it showed him next to a car. And I was like, oh, that's Jake. That's why he's like, I don't want to talk about that. I don't know what's going on or whatever it is. But then we
there's
see
a taxi
it
in the
later.
background. Yeah. And there's a taxi in the background during that scene too.
But we do see it later and it does seem like it's actually Marc. And so I was like, is this the first episode where they don't even make a reference to like a secret reference or anything like that to Jake? Maybe that's it. That's a perfectly Marvel thing to do is you do not reference it the one time he actually shows up.
Yeah. Lead it on, kind of dangle it before us and then stop dangling before us. Let us forget for just a moment. And then there he is.
That's very interesting.
It might have just been Marc. It could very well have just been Marc, but I think it was Jake. I think we finally saw Jake. We'll see.
We'll see. I mean, I think we're going to be seeing this episode because the next episode is the finale. So we'll probably have to see Jake either as a cameo, like not cameo, but like a mid-credits, after-credits kind of thing. Or we'll get into this a little bit later. Marc will have to team up with Jake basically to get things done.
And I think I'm all about making predictions right now. My prediction is that Jake shows up in the first 10 seconds of the next episode. So here's what I'm thinking happened. There were two hearts.
Yep.
They were pulled out of Marc and Steven. And Tawet said that they weren't full. They were incomplete. And so I heard that. I'm like, they got to go find Jake. That's why it's incomplete. But then they start sharing things. It's getting closer. But even after they've revealed everything to each other, it's still wobbling a little bit. My thinking is that it wasn't so much that they were hiding things from each other. It's that the scales were able to sense that there were 2 hearts on that scale, but 3 entities on the boat.
Yep, I agree.
That's why it balanced the moment Steven went overboard.
Yep.
Because then 2 hearts, 2 entities, now it can balance.
I completely agree. I thought the exact same thing. Whereas like it needs a third to balance. Steven goes over, well, now there's only 2 hearts needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jake is gonna just sit up from the field of reeds, start of the next episode.
Oh,
I'm calling it. Just me calling it right there.
and then Mark saying Steven and him being like, no. Yeah.
Of course not. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Well, we skipped right to the end.
We really did.
But we had to. We were talking about
I had to talk about it. Yeah. Got to talk about Jake every episode now.
But let's talk about Taweret. So interesting character, not quite what I was expecting based on what I did look up about the Egyptian god. It feels more of a like the for like those, I forget the character, the Egyptian god that does it, but like the one who carries the dead across the sea of the dead to the afterlife.
Yeah.
It's interesting that they put Taweret there because it's not like there's any special history with Taweret in the comic books that I know of. I'm not sure why Taweret is really there at all.
Yeah, I was trying to think of that too, and I couldn't come up with a great answer. The only thing I can think of was possibly because she's someone who would have sympathy on these 2, given the history with the younger brother and the trouble with the mom.
Yeah.
Because Taweret of women and children. So maybe because she has a history there and seeing the conflict that these 2 have had with women and children could be where that sympathy came from. But yeah, it is curious that they chose her for the role here.
Yeah. A little bit of that comic relief in a very, very serious episode.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about the memories.
Sure.
We'll keep it lighthearted on our side, but know that does not mean that this is a lighthearted subject, and that we know that this is unfortunately something that happens in real life too. And so this is all just us talking about Marvel, the comics, and how rough was that? Like that was very rough.
So rough. This is the first time that I finished the episode and was hesitant to watch it again. I'm so glad I watched it because we wanted answers, we got answers. But oh man, there were some scenes in there that I was just like, I don't want to watch this again. My heart broke at least 3 times. No, 4. I can think of 4th. It broke so many times throughout this episode. Watching it a second time wasn't any better. Knowing it was coming was worse. It just made the moment last longer because you're leading up to it, you're dreading it, and then it happens again. It's just like, oh, but yeah. But we got answers.
Interesting. So what we saw in the psych ward of it being a show where Dr. Steven Grant was in the show, that is actually where the persona name, at least, came from, was a show that him and his brother watched together. So that wasn't like fake. The psych ward gave us truths throughout. It was
a lot of truth,
just not what we were expecting in some places. And so feeling like you're the cause of someone so close to you passing, that makes sense. Like a heavy childhood trauma, but I think like that didn't create the multiple personalities. It definitely was hard for him, but it was really the never being able to get away from it because the mom kept blaming and kept going after him and abusing him that caused him to split, to basically like go into a different, like hide away, basically like just shut down when these bad things are happening to him and then come back up and be himself again afterwards.
He needed a defense mechanism.
But what's interesting is that it sounded like he was like hiding the beatings from Steven, but we see him turn into Steven right before the beating. So I'm actually thinking that Jake isn't, this is what my thought was that Jake isn't a result of dealing with Moon Knight. Jake is actually the one who got beat all those times. And so Steven was the innocent side. Like he never even saw his mom be bad. Like, he never knew he had a brother. It was all very innocent, very pure, like no strife or anything. Marc knows the reality of what was happening, but like tried to hide away from everything still. Like didn't want to be right there being hit and everything. Jake could have taken the brunt of it. And that's why we see Jake being a lot more violent of an individual whenever there's a cut out, cut back in, everyone's dead. It could be because Jake has that more violent tendencies from that. Like it makes more sense to me that it wasn't Marc and it wasn't Steven, because we see that it turned into Steven, but then the mom comes in. It's like, well then why would Steven not remember this? So
yeah, that's true. It very well could be. Yeah.
Although I will say, WandaVision, trip down memory lane for an episode. The same as Moon Knight, trip down memory lane, going through memory after memory, piecing together the past. I love this storytelling narrative where we're starting you partway through the story. It's not an origin, then we move on. It's the person's the person. Moving on, got a story. Now we find out the actual origin, both of Khonshu taking over and basically taking advantage of him dying and not wanting to die, and what actually caused the multiple personalities, and how a lot of the stuff we saw in the past with calling the mom and talking to her but not talking to her, and relationship, why they're in different places, all that stuff, all in one episode of just rapid fire memories.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly intense. Yeah. And the whole side with Khonshu too. So I'm curious of your thought on when he went to the cave, when Steven was following the kids to the cave, which is definitely the hardest part for me watching all that. He steps on the bones of a bird that looks very much like Khonshu.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on what that could mean? I have multiple possibilities.
So when I first saw it, I'm like, that wouldn't be there for no reason. Why would it be there? And what I thought was that Khonshu was already aware of Marc. And not necessarily like prepping him to be his avatar, but he may have been one of many options for an avatar. And so he had his eye on, Khonshu had his eye on Marc from the start.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the leading theory I have that's similar. So we know that Ammit and like different gods, they've shown that they have something of an ability to look through time, or look down and up a person's timeline specifically. They can see what crimes the person's going to commit later on, what crimes they've already committed, and they make decisions based on that. If Khonshu had that ability too, then this bird could be kind of a symbol of him looking down Marc's timeline and kind of being there at that moment indirectly as well, seeing this moment, knowing how significant this was for him, being aware of it. So that is one thought I had as well. It could be that just that representation of Khonshu's knowledge of Marc's entire timeline, not just from their interaction forward. The other possibility is that this isn't Steven literally going back in time and seeing these things happen. This is Steven witnessing it through Marc's memory. Memories are flawed. So this could be Marc just having an association between Khonshu and death. And this is the start of it for him. So it could be just this bird is there. Bird maybe wasn't even there in reality when this really happened, but it got added to his memory because of the association that he has built up with Khonshu. There's
Very
a couple of
possible.
thoughts I had on that.
Very possible. What was interesting for me also with memories was I didn't see Layla at all in it.
No, we didn't see Layla. We didn't see Moon Knight or Mr. Knight. This is
Yeah.
2 straight episodes without any Moon Knight in the show Moon Knight.
Arguable.
But yeah,
I mean, Marc is Moon Knight, so seeing Marc is
Yeah.
seeing Moon Knight. But
that's fair.
yeah, that we did not see the costume for 2 straight
Mhm.
episodes.
Yeah, we're five out of 6 episodes in. We saw Moon Knight briefly in episode 1, occasionally in episodes 2 and 3, and then was completely gone for episodes 4 and 5. Interesting strategy for a superhero movie to not show a lot of the superhero side. It's working though.
There was still action. I mean, there was when the bodies were trying to drag Steven and Marc down into the sands. I mean, one thing I like about that scene, so they didn't just have it be, oh, these random creature things are pulling you into the sand. It was the people he killed that he said were bad people. Their scales didn't balance. They were bad people. It proved that the people Marc saw and Steven saw in that cafeteria, that all the people Marc killed, saying they were bad people, they're actually bad people. Like they proved it. It's like they were the damned, the ones who are in the sand. They came up to try to drag him back down with them. So it proves Marc's not lying. He only did kill people who were bad. Yeah.
Khonshu's guidance was good in that respect. Yeah.
I mean, now, arguable if you think killing the bad is a good thing.
My apologies. No, yeah, I think you know what I mean there.
Yeah.
He wasn't lying to Marc in He wasn't lying to Marc in what type of people these were that he was fighting.
Right.
There's no hidden agenda there. Or well, yeah. Anyway, but I do want to talk a little more about that scene because shortly before that, I guess it was a little before that, but while they're on the boat, we see souls just raining down directly into the sand. And Tawet mentions about people are being judged before their time. So we know that a whole bunch of people are being judged and going directly down into the sand. What is happening in the, I'll say, overworld, in the above the underworld, in the real world? What is happening right now?
We know that Arthur Harrow has scales and kills people with like sucking their bodies dry or whatever he does to kill them just by holding his hands. So it feels like Arthur is having all of his minions, his people, judged in front of the stone statue for Ammit as like sacrifices in some way, and they're being judged and sent down immediately through him. Which, if anyone did watch the video we just had for theory video, I spoke on Arthur Harrow and a potential, what I think is his biggest secret, and this does line up well with it still, where I'll just say it, go watch the video, there's a lot more in it, but where Arthur Harrow may be the avatar of Anubis.
If you want to see that video, click the link up above.
Thank you, editor.
I'll find a way to add that.
But yeah, so like we saw the scales in this episode, and it was Anubis with the scales. So that just adds even more on top of what I already talked about before this episode even happened, about Arthur Harrow potentially being the avatar of Anubis. We see him judging and immediately sending them down into the sands.
Yeah.
What we don't see is Ammit devouring those souls as they come down or anything. They're all just going right into the sand. So Ammit's not up yet. I don't think Ammit has risen or been freed from the stone. I do think that Arthur Harrow is judging a whole bunch of, probably his minions, his followers, all of them in a row.
Yeah. He's doing something big up there. That is for certain. I also think it really shows that the Dr. Harrow we're witnessing is not the real Harrow.
Yeah.
It was a question I had. So last week I made the guess that Harrow is entering Mark/Steven's mind to try and get the location out. No, I definitely don't think that's the case now. I think Mark/Steven, they are being judged right now in that moment. Their mind is constructing the world around them because, like Tawet mentioned, the mortal mind can't comprehend everything that's happening, so that makes things up. Well, they needed a judge character in their mental construct, and they chose Harrow. It makes sense. They know what Harrow's doing, and this is similar to what he's trying to do. So I do think it is a construct that they have built. So this is not the real Harrow, this Dr. Harrow. This is something that they put into their own world that is kind of legitimately helping them in some ways.
I agree. Yeah. Does seem like that.
But yeah. And the real Harrow, he's up there sending people straight to the sand.
Yeah. We only have one episode left. And I feel like there's a lot that's going to happen in that one. I mean, we don't end the episode with them getting out of the underworld. He's still in there.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
They're still nearby Osiris's gate, but they've moved the yoke on the steering. They've turned around, did loop-de-loops. Who knows where they're at right now, but they still need to get out and stop Arthur. And whatever, if Ammit rises or not. I feel like there's no way Ammit rises at this point because of how little time there's going to be for Ammit to rise and be defeated, unless Ammit rises, and that's the season 2 is about fighting Ammit after they rise. I don't know. Yeah,
I think if Ammit was going to rise, it would have happened this episode, the end of this episode. That would have been the big end. The fact that they are still in the underworld. Oh, I say they. I mean, I guess technically they are. But yeah, I completely agree. I don't think we're going to see Ammit, but there will be a big showdown next episode.
So one question I really want to make sure that we have time to talk about. Steven. Do you think he's gone?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I'd be surprised if they did that, if they went that route. I think the way that they're going to get around it, so Steven's body went into the sand and froze, but not all of Steven did. His heart is still on the boat. I think that's going to end up being the key. I think they're either going to be able to put both hearts back into Mark, and so Steven's consciousness can enter back into him through that, or possibly more likely, part of Mark escaping the underworld, he goes back for Steven. Maybe even against Tawet's judgment, saying, don't you think it'd be easier to defeat Ammit and Harrow on your own? And he says, no, I'm going back for Steven. Gets Steven and is able to fix him by putting his heart back in. Either way, I think the fact that his heart is still on the boat is a good sign that he's not done. I don't want him to go the way of Bing Bong. Immediately what I thought of when he was freezing, I'm like, not again.
I'll say, I think that's it for Steven this season.
Okay.
I don't think he's gone forever, because honestly, he's way too important of a character that we've seen too much for him to really be just gone forever from the series. But I think he's gone. And I think that's going to be a next season thing, is getting Steven back from the underworld.
Yeah. Could be.
Right now, I guess Mark's not in the underworld. That's right, because as soon as he got judged, he's now in the field of reeds. So
right.
How he gets out of the field of reeds back to Earth, who knows? Like, he's essentially supposed to be in paradise now. I'm not sure how that's going to go with him getting back, but he's now even further removed from Steven.
Yeah. He is, but they were right by Osiris's gate. Did they say Osiris?
Yeah.
Yeah, Osiris's gate. And Tawet said that's the only way back, is through Osiris's gate. So they were right by it when he went to the Field of Reeds. Maybe the Field of Reeds were through that gate. I don't know, but I think the fact that they were so close there, I do think this is what Tawet was looking to happen to get them back. She said you needed the scales to balance. As soon as they balanced, he went to the Field of Reeds. If she was trying to help them get back by balancing their scales, then I think she would have known that they would have gone to the Field of Reeds. I think that would have been part of her plan. So I don't think she's done helping them. I think she's still going to help Marc make it back. Marc and Jake. Maybe Steven. Yeah. There's a lot to discover next week.
A lot. That was a majority of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. Is there anything else on your list that you wanted to make sure we talked about before we end up wrapping up this discussion?
I mean, those were the important things. The only thing I do want to say, which I thought was very interesting, was when we met Tawet at the beginning, she says she seems a little out of order, out of practice. She needs flashcards, which are parchment from ancient Egypt, which was awesome. But she says, it's been a minute since we've had someone pass through here. And then she talks a little bit about the different intersecting streams of consciousness areas. And she talks about just these various ways that people go. So I just think it's very interesting that they seem to have the afterlife that each person goes to dependent on their beliefs. I mean, that's now part of Marvel, that's the way it works.
Yep.
Which is very, very fascinating. And both Steven and Marc believe in the Egyptian gods for their own reasons, but they believe in the Egyptian gods. So it makes sense that when they pass to the underworld, that they're going to go through the process that they're expecting, that they believe to be the case, that their mind is creating this as the pathway of the underworld. And so that's why they're facing it. But belief in the Egyptian gods is not as predominant as it used to be. So they kind of hinted at that this is no longer the common way that people are going. I just thought that was a very interesting tidbit to put in there. And the allusion to Black Panther with the ancestral plane was also awesome, tying that in and showing, this isn't just the way it works in this show. We are connected.
Yeah, that's why they said the afterlife. No, this is an afterlife.
Exactly.
Very interesting way of wording it. Very interesting the way that they're handling it, because I mean, we already know of multiple afterlives throughout the MCU itself. Yeah, the ancestral plane. We have Valhalla. Yep. We have this now, the Egyptian, which, I mean, granted, we now have many different pantheons of gods. We have Norse gods. We now have Egyptian gods. We have, we're about to have Greek gods, I believe, in Thor: Love and Thunder. Another set of gods to throw in there. And really, they're all like alien species, extra dimensional species, like things like that. I mean, Eternals basically are considered gods too.
Yeah. In a
they're
different form, but yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about spoilers for Moon Knight, but spoilers for Eternals if you haven't seen it yet. I mean, they're synthezoids basically, and according to this movie, not comics, fully, but they are constructed, but they're still like godlike and we're treated like gods. So it's very interesting how Marvel is getting really big, and it's like the comic books balanced it in a way, and the way they're balancing in the MCU is to say all of these are true. All of them are.
Yep.
Love it.
They all have their place. Yeah. Agreed.
I was one last thing I want to say, because we're talking about the Egyptian afterlife, is I'm wondering if we might end up seeing Layla's father in the Egyptian afterlife somewhere in the Field of Reeds.
Interesting.
That's a thought I had.
Yeah, I was wondering if they'd run into his mother after we learned that she had died. I was like, are they going to come into contact with her at some point? But now with Marc in the Field of Reeds,
less likely.
Steven in a situation where he's not going to be responding and interacting with people, it's a little less likely now. But could definitely run into Layla's dad. Yeah.
I'm excited. There's only one episode left, and it's not like it's an extra long episode or anything like that. It's a normal length episode. And then we get that, and shortly after we have Multiverse of Madness. So Marvel content is going to keep coming.
Sure is. So what did you think about this episode?
I loved it. While there wasn't a Moon Knight costume, there wasn't a whole lot of action. I've never been a huge action person, to be quite honest. I think action for the sake of action, not action that tells a story. Action that tells a story, I love. Marvel's been very good about action that tells a story. Sometimes there isn't, but and so I don't miss the action when it's not there. This episode was it was dark, it was depressing in many ways, but it was so necessary and so like, I mean, it brought out so many emotions, and any media that can bring out emotions like that is something that I regard in the highest of esteem. So loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was powerful. I'm glad that it exists. I'm glad to have watched it. I've watched it 2.5 times now, and I'm done. I couldn't finish the third. I'm like, I can't. It got close to the cave scene. I'm like, no, I can't. I've seen enough. I'm gonna stop here. But I did love it. I think it was such great storytelling, and set up so much, answered so many questions, and set up so much going forward that I think it was a great episode. All right. Well, I think that's all we have today. Thank you for watching the Uncanny J-Men. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. Leave us a comment down below. Tell us what you think. Is there something that we missed? Do you think we're incorrect in all the predictions we've been throwing out there? Let us know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching.